Hello fellow speed enthusiasts, welcome to our countdown of the top 10 fastest motorcycles, but with a twist. Instead of focusing on speed or acceleration times, which can vary due to factors like tuning, regearing, and rider skill, we're ranking these bikes based on their power to weight ratio. Why? Because horsepower and weight are constants that remain almost unchanged and are agreeable on. We've taken a conservative approach in our calculations and used wet weights for all the bikes. We've rounded down for horsepower and up for weight. This way, no one can argue that any bike is worse off in our ranking, only better. After all, things only get better when you're on a motorcycle. It's worth noting that some manufacturers like BMW have historically reported lower horsepower figures than what their bikes actually produce. But even with these conservative numbers, they still perform exceptionally well. This being said, remember, none of this is set in stone, and information found on the internet isn't always reliable. Simple changes like eating less fried chicken or reducing rider weight can have a more significant impact than most mods sometimes. The one variable in these numbers is the rider weight, so if you want to win races, you must win marathons first. Go for a run. On foot. Lastly, all the bikes on this list are street legal and easily accessible to the public. We've excluded one-of-a-kind bikes and models that are no longer in production or had a very limited production run. So no H2R and no Superleggeras, or jet turbine bikes. If you can't buy a bike or even plausibly ride it, who cares if it will suck your eye sockets into your cranium? It is unrideable. With that being said, please subscribe to the channel for an automatic +1 horsepower, and then we can get into our number 10. The Suzuki Hayabusa comes in at 187 horsepower and 582 hefty pounds, giving it a 0.32 power to weight ratio. Many of you might think that this is one of the fastest drag bikes ever made, but in reality it is just a chunky little monkey that lives off legends from the 90s. This is 2024, people, and almost 600 pounds for a motorcycle is not fast anymore. But that doesn't really matter, since it is a Suzuki, so by the time you go to release the clutch and launch yourself down the drag strip, the engine will have inevitably seized up by now, leaving you with a 582 pound paperweight. Seriously, have you ever watched World Superbike? The Suzuki's pull into the pits after the warm-up lap. Now coming in at number 9, we have a little bit more of a reliable machine, with the ZX14R. This bike comes in at a zesty 200 horsepower that unfortunately has a little bit of a fried chicken addiction, with it almost starring on my 600 pound life coming in at 593 pounds. While this bike might be the heaviest on our list, it is also probably one of the most reliable, with that oversized Kawasaki engine. That being said, unlike the Hayabusa, which needs a turbo to feel fast, which inevitably blows up that less than lovely Suzuki motor, this bike makes you feel like the Green Goblin fresh from the showroom floor, with its rather impressive 0.34 power to weight ratio. Number 8, we have the bike that provides you with the feeling all turbo Busa riders strive to feel, the baby brother of one of the fastest bikes known to man, the Ninja H2. Since the 326 horsepower of the H2R was too ludicrous for the streets, Kawasaki had to limit this bike to a measly 200 horsepower and a weight of 529 pounds, giving it a power to weight ratio of 0.38. Unfortunately, this still weighs in above the 500 mark due to the fact that Kawasaki was forced to add a bunch of safety features to this bike, whatever that means. This bike has all those pesky unnecessary features like turn signals, mirrors, headlight, and street legal tires. What a load. Anyways, this is the only motorcycle on sale today that comes equipped with a supercharger, making it automatically cooler than most, even if it is a little chunky. Not to mention the one-of-a-kind paint scheme, design language, and sound when it's flat out. This bike holds a special place in so many people's hearts. Take a listen. 7, we have all the normies' favorite bike, the R1M. I like it because it sounds different. It has a cross-plane crank. Yeah, well, cross my path and I'll whoop your ass on that bike made by that musical instrument company. And has one of the coolest headlight designs out there. For those of you that haven't heard the bike's rather distinct sound, take a listen. While this bike does come with a whole suite of rider aids and electronics, it makes the least amount of power on this list at 197 horsepower and 450 pounds, giving it a weight ratio of 0.44, making it the least of Japan's Big Four. Assuming you don't count the CBR, but that bike has become irrelevant since the SP RRR Fireblade has come out that it practically qualifies as a bike not available to the masses. Seriously, I couldn't find any information on the CBR anymore. I searched CBR non-SP horsepower and I get all the triple R specs. Honda seemed to somehow erase that mistake of a bike off their record in a matter of seconds. And now, coming in at number 6, we have the Suzuki GSX-R 1000, the ultimate squid missile. If you consider flip-flops and a cutoff proper riding gear, this is the bike for you. Those Suzuki squids must wear that gear since they know that their bike could explode at any moment and they want to be comfortable as they walk home on those hot summer days. This bike makes 200 horsepower and weighs 443 pounds, giving it a power to weight ratio of 0.45. Add the flip-flop weight reduction coefficient that all Suzuki riders are born with, and you get the lightest bike coming out of Japan. Not that any of it matters, because the bike will blow up before you ever get to its first service. Number 5. The first bike not from Japan, and the first non-inline 4. The RSV4 1100 factory uses science and engineering to make a beast of a V4 engine crank out 217 horsepower and comes in at a weight of 465 pounds, giving it a power to weight ratio of 0.47. This bike dominates races because if you don't consider any optional exhausts or ram air systems that can come with bikes from the factory, this bike makes the most horsepower out of all the leader bikes in stock form. Now, unlike some of the other channels out there that, without name dropping, rhyme with slimy pube, that rank this bike way higher, we actually can do math on this channel. This bike has a wet weight of 465 pounds, which is how we weighed all the bikes, since who cares if a bike is light without gas or oil, since without those precious liquids in your bike, you won't be going anywhere. Almost like if you owned a Suzuki. Number 4. The ZX-10RR. The fact that this isn't even a special edition motorcycle and is still making gobs more power than some of the special edition bikes that the other big four make, such as the R1M, says something about how Kawasaki just loves to make that juicy power available to their customers. Making 214 horsepower and weighing in at 465 pounds gives the Mean Machine a power to weight ratio of 0.47 horsepower per pound. So if you like the idea of being a green goblin on the ZX-14R, then you will love being a smaller, slimmer, faster Green Goblin on the ZX-10. For those of you that love value, this is where the list stops. Things are going to get expensive from here, so if you renounce Scrooge McDuck or consider money to be no object in your goal of buying a piss missile to yeet you into hyperspace, these bikes are for you. Number 3 is the CBR 1000 RR-R Fireblade SP. The RR sounds like they named it after a feral dog. This is what happens when engineers at Honda get mad and decide to actually put their brains to use. This bike practically obliterated all reputation of the little brother CBR that made way less horsepower than any of the big four's leader bikes. Honda pulled some absolute wizardry with this bike, making it produce a whopping 214 horsepower and weighing in at 443 pounds wet, giving it a power to weight ratio of 0.48 horsepower per pound. While these bikes can be hard to find, since Honda seems to only make 300 to 500 of these per year, they are still producing them each and every year, so I'm not going to count them as a super limited production run, and therefore I'm going to consider it still fair to include in this list. Honda even has to tell people not to buy their bikes since they know how much of a monopoly they would have if they sold any more of these. Seriously, their website says, and quote, "We'll be honest, the performance a high-revving open-class inline 4 like this delivers isn't for everyone," end quote. Imagine telling your customers, yeah, this bike isn't for you. That's when you know you have a good product. Coming in at number 2, the BMW M1000RR. I don't even know what to say with this one. This is what mechanical perfection looks like. Every last part of this bike was designed to make your journey into hyperspace as easy and as fast as possible. Life feels like a video game on this exquisitely engineered bike. A perfectly manageable 205 horsepower shift cam engine that allows the bike to have maximum power at every point in the rev range is fitted in this bike, but the best part is how the M package makes this bike by far the lightest bike on the market, with the lightweight battery and carbon fiber wheels. However, even without the M package, the bike is still the lightest leader bike money can buy. All that put together gives this bike a power to weight ratio of 0.49. Not to mention, although BMW claims 205 horsepower, these bikes have been known to make more than that, and everyone that owns these tune them to smoothen out the shift between the low range and the high end of the power band. Best of all, BMW in their infinite wisdom somehow also found a way to make this bike comfortable enough to tour on, with many people online doing 300 and 400 mile days on these bikes. There literally is no downside to this bike. Haters haven't ridden it, riders haven't hated on it. Coming in at number 1, the spaghetti missile you've all been waiting for, the Ducati V4R. With Ducati's finest $6,000 exhaust and their special Shell racing oil, this bike blows the competition out of consideration with its 241 screaming stallions, and a close second in the not chunky department, giving this bike a weight of 427 pounds, giving it a power to weight ratio of 0.56. Just let that sit with you for a moment. For every horsepower this bike has, there's not even 2 pounds of weight accompanying it. Yet somehow the Superleggera trimmed another 29 pounds, yet charges $55,000 to do that, giving the Ducati a dollar per pound of $1,896 per pound saved. I would rather lay off the chicken and lose the weight myself. Colonel Sanders might disagree though. With that, please subscribe, like, and comment, and thank you all for watching. I'll see you on the next one.